I was lying on a hospital bed, weak, barely able to move after my surgery. My body was tired, my heart even more so, but I had one comfort in my mind. My son will come, he'll take me home, and everything will be fine. But what I didn't know was that life was about to break me in a way I never imagined. Before I share this story with you, if you believe that parents deserve love, respect, and dignity, then please subscribe to this channel right now. Now, let me take you to that exact moment. The nurse gently tapped my shoulder, her voice soft but firm. "Sir, your discharge papers are ready." "Who's picking you up?" I smiled weakly and whispered, "My son will be here soon." I truly believed it. After all, I had raised him, fed him, clothed him, worked day and night just to give him the life I never had. Surely, at this moment, when his old father could barely stand, he would be there. Minutes turned into an hour. The hallway grew emptier. Other patients were leaving, one by one, their families surrounding them with love, carrying their bags, holding their hands. I watched them with teary eyes, my heart whispering, "Soon my son will come too." But he didn't. I dialed his number with trembling fingers. When he finally answered, his words cut through me like a knife. "Dad, we're busy. We can't come. Just take a taxi or stay at the hospital another night." Stay at the hospital? After they had discharged me? After they had told me I needed rest, proper care, and family around me? I couldn't believe it. And then I heard his wife's voice in the background. Cold, sharp, uncaring. "Tell him we can't do everything for him. We have our own life, too." My hands went cold. My eyes welled up. In that moment, I realized I was no longer their priority. I was a burden. Friends, can you imagine that kind of pain? After years of love and sacrifice, being tossed aside like you don't matter? If you're still with me, I want you to hit the like button, not for me, but for every parent who's ever felt abandoned. Show them they're not alone. I sat there on the cold hospital bench, clutching the small bag that carried my medicines and clothes. My surgery scar throbbed with pain, but the Betrayal wound was inside my chest. I thought back to the nights I had stayed awake, holding my son when he was sick, to the days I skipped meals so he could eat better, to the times I walked barefoot so he could have shoes. And yet here I was, alone, forgotten. But you know what's strange about life? The same night that broke me also gave me an answer I never expected. Because while my son and his wife thought they had left me to suffer, fate had something else planned for them. And what happened next shocked not just me, but them too. So stay with me, because this is where the story truly begins. Because that night, the tables turned. You know, a betrayal never happens overnight. It brews slowly. And if I look back now, the signs were always there. I still remember the days when my son was little. He was my whole world. I worked long hours, sometimes skipping meals, sometimes sleeping on a floor, just so he could eat well, study well, and never feel less than anyone else. I bought every book he needed. Every dream he dreamed, I tried to make possible. I didn't think twice about my own needs, because his smile was enough to keep me alive. When he got older, I even sold a piece of land I had inherited just so he could study in a better college. I told myself, it's fine, I'll manage. My son's future is worth everything. And when he graduated, when he started earning, my heart swelled with pride. I thought, now life will be easier. Now he will stand by me, just as I always stood by him. But life doesn't always work out the way we imagine. At first, things seemed good. He would call me often, ask if I needed anything. On weekends, he and his new wife would visit. She would smile politely, bring sweets, and I felt like my family was complete. But slowly, little cracks started to show. The calls became less frequent. The visits became shorter. I noticed the way she looked when I asked for small favors, like taking me to the doctor or helping with groceries. She would sigh softly, sometimes roll her eyes when she thought I wasn't watching. My son, too, started speaking differently. "Dad, you worry too much. Dad, I'm busy. I don't have time right now. Dad, we have our own life. You should manage on your own." At first, I brushed it off. I told myself they're young. They have jobs, responsibilities. I shouldn't trouble them. But inside, every word cut a little deeper. Because I remembered how, when he was small, I never once said I was too busy for him. Still, I had hope. I thought maybe after my surgery, things would change. Maybe when he sees me weak and helpless, his heart will soften. Maybe he'll remember everything I did for him. So I went into surgery with faith. Faith that when I opened my eyes, my son would be standing there, holding my hand, telling me, "Don't worry, Dad, I've got you." But as you already know, that faith was shattered. Friends, if you've ever felt the sting of being forgotten by the very people you gave your life to, you'll understand this pain. And if you believe no parent should ever feel this way, please take a moment to subscribe and share this story, because too many mothers and fathers suffer in silence. Back then, sitting outside the hospital alone, I realized this betrayal wasn't sudden. It had been built for years. Every dismissive word, every selfish act, it was leading up to this. But what none of us knew, what even I couldn't have imagined, was that the same night, everything would change. Life has its own way of teaching lessons. And the same son who refused to take me home would find himself desperately wishing I was by his side. The morning after my surgery, I woke up weak, my body stitched with pain, but my heart held one small hope. My son would be there for me. I told myself, he'll come, he's my blood. He knows I can't go home alone. The nurse approached softly. "Sir, who's coming to pick you up?" I smiled faintly, whispering, "My son, he should be here any moment." Minutes turned into hours. Every time footsteps echoed in the corridor, my heart lifted, only to fall again when strangers passed by with flowers and wheelchairs. Families arrived with cars, with warm arms to take their loved ones home. And me? I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the small bag with my clothes, waiting. Finally, I dialed his number. My voice trembled. "Beta, are you on your way?" Silence. Then his flat tone cut through. "Dad, we're busy today. You'll have to manage on your own." I froze. But I just had surgery. I can't even walk properly. In the background, his wife's voice snapped. "We can't do everything for him. He needs to learn we have our own life." My hand shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. My heart pounded louder than the hospital machines. Was this really my son? The boy I carried in my arms? The man I gave my life for? The nurse looked at me with pity. "Do I have anyone else?" she asked gently. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced a smile. "No, it's fine. I'll manage." That word, manage, became a cruel joke. Because minutes later, I was standing outside the hospital, the night air cold against my weak body, my small bag pressing into my side. I lowered myself onto a bench, watching cars drive away, each filled with laughter and love. I had no one. My body hurt, but the wound in my chest burned more. Maybe they're right, I thought bitterly. Maybe I am a burden now. And yet, deep inside, another voice whispered, "This betrayal will not go unanswered. Tonight something will happen they never saw coming." The betrayal was complete, but the story was only beginning. That night, while I sat quietly in the dim corner of my small, rented room, nursing both my surgical pain and my broken heart, something unexpected happened. Life has a strange way of balancing itself, and I was about to witness it firsthand. A gentle knock came at the door. To my surprise, it was an old friend from the neighborhood, Mr. Rahim. He had seen me outside the hospital earlier that day, sitting helplessly with my small bag, and he couldn't get the image out of his mind. Without hesitation, he brought me food and insisted on staying the night to make sure I was all right. In his presence, I felt the warmth my own son had denied me. But while I was finally receiving kindness across the city, my son and his wife were facing a night they would never forget. Their car had broken down on a lonely road. Rain poured heavily, their phones were nearly dead, and for the first time, they felt stranded and helpless. The irony was undeniable. The very same night they had abandoned me in my weakness, fate left them struggling on their own. And that was just the beginning. The next morning, as I sat sipping tea with Mr. Rahim, still aching from surgery, I heard a frantic knock on my door. It was my son and his wife. Their clothes were damp from last night's rain, their faces pale with exhaustion. For the first time in years, they looked small, vulnerable. "Dad, we need your help," my son stammered, his voice trembling. He explained how their car had broken down in the storm and how they had spent hours stranded, calling for assistance with no luck. His wife added, almost whispering, that they realized how frightening it felt to be abandoned when you needed someone the most. I looked at these two people who had left me helpless outside a hospital just hours before and felt a storm of emotions: pain, anger, disbelief, but above all, a strange calm. "When I needed you," I said slowly, You turned me away. Now you come to me." My words hung in the air like a heavy weight. My son dropped his gaze, ashamed. His wife fidgeted, unable to speak. Silence filled the room, broken only by their shallow breaths. For the first time, the power had shifted. The helpless father was no longer helpless, and they knew it. The room stayed silent for a long while after my words. My son's shoulders trembled as he stared at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. His wife, usually so sharp with her tongue, stood frozen, her lips pressed tightly together. For the first time since I could remember, they had no excuses, no justifications. Only shame. I leaned back slowly, feeling the ache of my healing body, but also the calm of newfound strength. The old father who always forgave, who always gave without question, would have rushed to comfort them. But this time I didn't. This time, I allowed the weight of their choices to hang in the air. Finally, my son spoke, his voice cracking. "Dad, we were wrong. We should have been there for you." I don't know what we were thinking. His wife nodded faintly, though her eyes still avoided mine. I sighed. "Do you know what it feels like," I asked quietly, "to sit outside a hospital, weak and helpless, and realize your own child has no space in his life for you?" He winced, and tears welled in his eyes. That sight stirred something in me, not forgiveness yet, but perhaps recognition that he was beginning to understand. I had a choice at that moment. I could shut the door on them forever, cut the thread that tied us as family. Part of me wanted to. It would have been easier, perhaps even fair. But another part of me that had spent a lifetime raising him, guiding him, loving him, knew that my decision would shape not just our relationship, but the legacy I left behind. So I did not embrace him, nor did I cast him away. Instead, I drew a line. "I will not beg for love again," I told him firmly. "If you wish to be in my life, it must be with respect. Not convenient. Not when you feel like it. Respect. If you cannot give that, then leave now and never return." The words left my mouth with surprising steadiness, and in that instant, I felt lighter, freer than I had in years. My son wiped his eyes, and for the first time, he didn't argue. He didn't try to defend himself. He simply nodded. His wife lowered her gaze, her usual pride melting away into uneasy silence. They left quietly, promising to return soon and do better. Whether those promises would hold, only time could tell. But for me, the decision had already been made. I would no longer live in the shadow of their neglect. That evening, as I sat by the window with a warm cup of tea Mr. Rahim had kindly prepared, I realized something profound. I had spent so many years tying my happiness on the gratitude of my children, believing my worth depended on their care. But life had shown me otherwise. My dignity, my peace, my strength, these belonged to me, not to anyone else. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly at peace. I did not know if my son and his wife would change, if they would truly return with respect in their hearts. But one thing was certain. I would never again allow myself to be treated as a burden. I was no one's leftover responsibility. I was a father, a man who had given his best, and who now deserved peace in return. And with that realization, I smiled faintly, watching the night sky. Life had tested me, but it had also taught me a lesson I wished every parent would remember. Love given freely is beautiful, but love that demands dignity is unshakable. Life has a way of teaching lessons in the most unexpected ways. That night, my son and his wife learned what it felt like to be helpless and abandoned. And I, despite my pain, discovered something even greater. That dignity and peace come not from others, but from the strength we find within ourselves. Parents are not burdens. They are the roots from which every child grows. Their sacrifices, their sleepless nights, their endless giving up, these should never be forgotten or repaid with neglect. Respect is not a favor to parents. It is a duty, a moral debt we all owe. If my story touched you, let it serve as a reminder. Love your parents while you still have the chance. Don't wait for life or fate to teach you the hard way. Show them kindness now, because one day it may be too late. And if you believe that no parent should ever be left alone in their weakest moment, I ask you, share this story. Let it reach someone who needs to hear it today. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss more real stories that carry lessons for the heart. Parents are not a burden to be carried. They are a blessing to be cherished before life teaches you their worth through regret.